The Hawk County School District is excited to announce the release of our Back to School ELA and Math Reconnect broadcasts. Between August 12th and August 21st, the Hawk County School District plans to release 6 ELA and Math video lessons for students in K through 2nd grade, 3rd through 5th grade, 6th through 8th grade, and 9th through 12th grade. Along with the video lessons, students and parents will have a list of supplemental resources related to the topic from the lesson. Students and parents can access these videos and resources on the district's Reconnect Hall website beginning August 12th. We hope students and parents find these instructional tools helpful in getting a jump start on learning for the upcoming school year. Hello and welcome to this Back to School Reconnect broadcast. In the video you're watching today, we are going to be looking at the first half of the school year for 4th graders in math. We're going to look at all of the big ideas that 4th graders might face, or at least some of them, and then we're going to have a lesson on one of those big ideas to better understand that topic. Let's get started. Let's talk about some of the big ideas that 4th graders will see in the beginning of their school year. Now again, I'd like to make mention that these are not all of the ideas that 4th graders will see. These are just some of the bigger ideas in math that 4th graders will be working with from August to December. The first big idea we're going to mention is place value. Students are going to be comparing, adding, and subtracting numbers now within 1 million, which is often a big jump for 4th graders because they were working with numbers in addition and subtraction in 3rd grade only within 1,000. So a lot of place values have been added past the 1,000 place value. Students will also be rounding numbers to any place within 1,000. And the other two big ideas for the first half of the school year are multiplication and division. The expectation for 4th graders in multiplication is that they'll be multiplying numbers that are up to 4 digits by a single digit number. And then in division, they'll be expected to divide 4-digit numbers by, again, a single-digit number. And those are the big ideas for the first half of the school year. In our lesson today, for the student, what we're going to be teaching is we want them to be able to compare numbers by using place value and also using symbols to notate and make a comparison statement of two numbers. As always, teachers in Hawk County use the same math lesson structure every time we teach. We're going to start today with a warm-up to help students understand and practice some skills that will help them work more efficiently within the lesson. Then we're going to go into the lesson time where we're going to focus on that learning target that we just stated, an I can statement. And after we get done with the lesson, we're going to move on into a work session where students will be practicing things independently that they've learned during the lesson time. Now today, our targeted standard that we'll be looking at in our lesson is Numbers in Base 10, the second standard, which says read and write multi-digit whole numbers using Base 10 numerals, number names, and expanded form. And the bulk is going to be here in the second part of the center where it says compare two multi-digit numbers based on meanings of the digits in each place using greater than, equal to, and less than symbols to record the results of comparisons. Important vocabulary and symbols that we'll be using today are place value and understanding here that each digit in a multi-digit number does have its own value. We're going to be comparing numbers, talking about how are the numbers alike and different, using discussion of their place values. And three symbols we'll be using very heavily in the lesson today is the less than symbol, the greater than symbol, and the equal sign to notate that two numbers are equal. Now we're going to get started with learning. We're going to get started by doing a warm-up, which is called Base 10 subitizing, where students are going to be looking at Base 10 pieces and they're going to need to subitize them to understand what number is being shown by the manipulative. Now, that word manipulative is just the teacher word for the things that the students are going to be using, touching, so that they can make the numbers. But today, the numbers will be presented on the screen. And subitizing means to look at something quickly And by looking at the picture, we can quickly add like pieces together to make the number from expanded form into its standard form, or sum of all the parts we're going to see on the screen. Let's practice one together. On this screen, you see the blue piece is the 100 piece. You see two rods, or some people call them the sticks. Those are equal to 10 each, and then the yellow cube is equal to 1. So the number that the student would see quickly is 100 plus 20 plus 1, or 121. Now in the next screens that you're going to see, I'm going to ask that you participate like a student. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to pause. If you need to pause the video, you're welcome to do so. But we're going to practice subitizing base 10 pieces to understand what numbers we're seeing on the screen. Quickly subitize these pieces. What number do you see? You should have said 240 because there are 200 pieces and 4 10 pieces. What number do you see? You should have said 185. And you might be saying to yourself right now, wow, this is going fast. I don't know if I could do that this fast. But remember, we need to group like pieces together. So of course, we always need to say 100. We see 4 and 4 is 8 tens, 80, plus the 5 small cubes in the middle. Let's do another one. What number do you see? You should have said 432. What number do you see here? You should have said 93. If you were to count the tens, we'd want the students to count and skip count by multiples of 10, 30, 60, 90, plus 3. What number do you see here? You should have said 200 because we have 10 tens. This makes up an additional 100, and we would exchange the rods for another blue 100 piece. Mentally, we would regroup. What number do you see here? You should have said 160 because these are going to regroup to make another 10, which will give us 6 tens plus the 100. What number do you see here? You should have said 150 because these are grouped in sets of 50. What number do you see here? You should have said 262. Did the one on the side trick you? Were you able to add it quickly in with the rest? What number do you see here? It's 436. There are 4 100s, 3 10s, and 6 1s. Now we're going to get started with our place value lesson. Let's get started with our lesson today. In our lesson today, I want to remind you that the student is going to be comparing numbers using greater than, equal to, and less than symbols. And a way to do that is we're going to have to compare the numbers using the place value. In our lesson today, we're going to be playing kind of like a game together. If I was in my classroom, it would be the students versus me, or I would call up 2 volunteers. But for the purposes of this lesson today, I'm going to have a number, and I'm going to be kind of playing along with this game with you so that we can understand who has the larger number and using the correct symbols to make a comparison statement. And so our game today, if you hear me relate to us, we're going to be the ticket masters. I mean, you're going to be going through, and we're each going to be given a ticket with a number on it. So today, the number that I'm given in our first example to practice here in this lesson today, my number is 365,344. And the number you have is 365,350. And we have to come up with a comparison statement. In the middle, which of these symbols would we use? And in order to do that, we're going to need to look at place values to understand what's alike in these numbers and what's different. And so I'm going to give you a moment right now to think about, number one, what is the same in these numbers? I know what I'm seeing is the same, is that the 100,000, 10,000, and 1,000 place values are the same in both of our numbers. We both start with 365,000. So we're going to need to focus on the hundreds, tens, and ones places at the end of the numbers. And in my number, I have 344, you have 350. And I gravitate towards, when I'm teaching this type of thing, that I want to look for the larger number first, because that's just easier for me to understand. And I know that 350 is bigger than 344. So I know I'm not going to use the equal symbol. These numbers are not equal. They are not the same number. So I'm going to have to choose, is my number greater than your number, or is my number less than your number? And in this case, we know that my number is less than your number. And a way to remember that is, I know we've all had the teacher who's taught this lesson where this is turned into Pac-Man or an alligator, and the mouth here is open. It's going to usually eat the larger number. And that's just a way for students to just have a fun way to remember how the symbol should be pointing, that the open side should be open to the bigger number, and it's always pointing in the symbol to the lower number. So the comparison statement we would say with these two tickets is that 365,344 is less than 365,350. Can you tell me why? And somewhere in that explanation, you as the student would want to focus on these place values, and you could even say the hundreds place is even the same in these numbers. It's the tens place where the numbers are different. And in your case, your number had more tens than my number, which made it the larger number. Let's practice another. Okay, this time my number is 365,352. Read your number. You should have said that your number is 365,152. And we're going to take a moment and just do some math observations and trying to think about what is alike in these numbers and what's different. And you're welcome to pause the video to study these numbers now. In looking at these numbers, again, all of the 1,000 places, the 100,000, the 10,000, and the 1,000s are all the same with 365,000. And in this number, I even realized that the tens place and the ones place is the same in both numbers. The only place value that was different in our numbers was the hundreds place. I have 300s. You only have 100. So we have to, again, use our symbols. Is my number greater than your number, equal to your number, or less than your number? And I hope that you said it was greater than. My number is greater than. So let's make a comparison statement using our two numbers now. One statement you could make is 365,352 is greater than 365,152 because the first number has more hundreds than the second number. Let's practice another. Here's my number, and your number. I'm going to give you a chance right now to read both of these numbers to yourself. It's very important for fourth graders to have practice in reading numbers that are larger than 4 digits, because a lot of times in the practice in third grade, numbers stay within 1,000 or less. So when students see place values in the 10,000s and 100,000s, it is new for them and it can sometimes overwhelm them. So reading the numbers alone is a great practice. My number is 365,011 and your number is 365,111. What is different about my number and your number? I immediately was gravitated towards the hundreds place. I have 0 hundreds. You have 100. So now it's time to use our symbols again. Is my number greater than your number, equal to your number, or less than your number? Well, of course, I have 0 hundreds and you have 100. So my number is actually less than your number because you have more hundreds than me. Let's make a comparison statement now. 365,011 is less than 365,111 because 365,111 has 1 more hundred than 365,011. Let's practice another. Here's our two numbers. I'll let you have a time to practice reading this number to yourself. Also read both numbers, if I didn't say that before. Now that you've practiced reading that to yourself, I want you to begin thinking about what's alike in these numbers and what's different. Let's do some comparing of these two numbers. As I'm going through each place value, I'm noticing that the 100,000, 10,000, 1,000, 100, and 10 place value are all the same in both your number and my number. The only place that it's different is in the ones place. I have 8 ones, you have 9 ones. Which symbol would you use? Is my number greater than, equal to, or less than your number? And of course, my number is less than your number. Will you make a comparison statement now using these two numbers? One statement we can make is 365,348 is less than 365,349 because 8 ones is less than 9 ones. Another practice problem, let's go together. Again, you're going to notice that these numbers are very similar and sometimes they're using digits. The individual numbers are similar, but they've just switched their order, and students have to be able to examine each place value to understand which one is greater or less than. So I'm going to give you a chance to read these numbers and start comparing them. Our numbers are 365,550 and 365,055. Which symbol would you choose to put in between these two numbers? I would definitely say that mine is greater than your number. Can you tell me why? Let's make a comparison statement now. And we might be able to figure out, and hopefully you said the same thing I'm going to say. 365,550 is greater than 365,055 because my number has 5 hundreds and yours has 0 hundreds. My number is larger. That's the end of our lesson today, but I do want to share some possible resources with you. that you as the parent could continue practicing. If your student's struggling with those place values and understanding which one is larger by looking at the digits individually, there's a great website that's going to be linked on the resource page around this video where students can go and they can actually practice making those numbers out of base 10 pieces. Just like we were using in the warm-up, students can actually go and click and make numbers on this website. Another website that would be great, it's just a game they could play for extra practice, is the Comparing Number Values game, and that's on abcguide.com, and that resource is also linked in the resource page around this video. Now we're going to switch from our lesson time into our work session where students are going to be working independently on practicing what we just learned in the lesson. Now during the lesson, you notice that a lot of the conversation was guided and the teacher was more of an assistant in getting the lesson and practicing the same types of things over and over. In the work session, we're going to ask students to work more independently, and you're going to see that as the teacher, when I'm talking to you as the student, I'm going to be asking guiding questions so that you can understand what you're learning, but you're the one who's more in control of getting to the answer, and I'm only there to assist you by giving you those guiding questions. For example, some of the questions I might ask you today in the work session is, well, which number is greater? I might ask you which number is less. I might even say, well, how are you comparing these numbers? And then what did you do to get your answer? So a lot of this, you see, I'm not pointing you directly like, look at the tens place. That's where it's different. I'm going to ask you questions that are going to guide you because sometimes students may get confused and these guiding questions can help them self-correct to understand they were making a mistake. For our work session today, we're going to be putting these numbers in order. So this is a little different, and we're not going to be necessarily making less than, greater than, or equal to statements. We're going to kind of mentally be doing the greater than or less than here because we're going to have to put the numbers in a stacked order from greatest to least or least to greatest, whichever order, where the biggest numbers are going to be on the top and the lowest number is going to be on the bottom. So I'm going to give you a moment now, and I'm going to let you look at the numbers on the tickets, and I want you to start devising a plan about what numbers we could move, what numbers can we group, and start comparing. So if you need to pause the video now, you can do so that you can look at the numbers to do that. A possible way that a student would solve this is, and while I'm going through this, I want to kind of pretend as though I am talking to you as though you're the student, but I'm also going to talk to you about a strategy or a way that I would hope that a student would practice and work through these things. For example, when I'm looking at all of these numbers that they've given us, I immediately was gravitated towards the fact that this number down here has 400 thousands. And the rest of them are going to be lower than that, so that immediately clued me into this number is actually the greatest. So I'm going to put it at the top, and I don't have to really even compare it because I compared it to the group. But when I'm looking at other numbers, I'm seeing that the 100,000, 10,000s, and thousands place, and some of these numbers are the same. So to help me with that, I'm going to group those numbers that are similar together to help me better understand which numbers I would want to compare to get started. Now I know right off the bat that this set of numbers with 100,000 are going to be lower in the order than these numbers with 200,000s. So to start, if I'm going from top to bottom, again, it doesn't matter which. I could do this set first and move them around for this set. But to make myself choose an efficient strategy, I'm going to go with the next lower 100,000 from 400,000, which is this set down here with 200,000s. And I'm going to need to compare these numbers one at a time to see if I can see where there's a place value that is larger than another one that has a lower place value. So again, all of these have the same 100,000, but when I get to the 10,000s, I'm noticing that they are not the same. For example, this number has 60,000 after the 200,000, which is higher than it. So I can go ahead and place it under the 400,000 because it's the next greatest number. But when I'm looking at these, they both have 216,000, so I'm going to go to the next place value. And I look at the hundreds place, and I'm noticing that this one has 500, this one has 800, and 800 is greater. So I'm going to put it next in my order. And you see how by grouping them before, now my ordering them down the page is getting faster and faster. And now I just have these three left. So let's look at them and let's see, what do you notice is the same about these? I notice that all three of these numbers have 158,000. So again, I'm going to have to look at the hundreds place maybe first to help me to see if I can determine which one needs to go next. So this one has 0 hundreds, this one has 900, and this one has 300. So the one with the most hundreds was the one with the 900s. So I know it goes next in the order. Then we'll look again, this one had 300s, this one had 0 hundreds. So of course this one will go next, and then this one is the least of all. And I can move these around if I was a student working on these slides. Give me just a moment. And that's how I would order these tickets from greatest to least if I were a student. Now you may have chosen to do a different path. Again, I was just using this as an example of a path that a student could take in practicing ordering numbers and comparing place values in multi-digit numbers. In our lesson today, the two learning outcomes that we would like for students to have is to have a great understanding of the place value and being able to break these multi-digit numbers apart into those place values so that they can see which numbers are larger or smaller than one another. And we'd also like for students to be able to make comparison statements using the symbols of greater than, less than, and sometimes the equal sign correctly. And using both of these items, they were able to make comparisons of these numbers. And that's the two things we'd like to see students do when they're ending this type of lesson. I'd like to make mention that our PowerPoint or slideshow that you've been viewing today was provided by slidesgo.com. I hope this lesson helps you. For additional practice and support, check out the resources and activities that have been provided in the resource list linked directly below this video. Know that you can come back to this lesson again and again to further reinforce your learning. Reach out to your child's teacher if you have any questions. We're looking forward to a great year thriving together. Thank you for watching.